mist is hanging low. Boots crunch the frost where the grasses grow. Rifle slung in a heart that's steady. The wild calls out and I'm already ready. The hunt is on and the woods don't lie. Tracks in the dirt under an open sky. It's a man, a plan, and the earth in sync. The hunt is on, take a breath, don't blink. The cedar snaps as I make my way. The hawk soars high, I'm watching its prey. I'm part of this, just flesh and bone.
Hello and welcome back to the Inside Spread. My name is Kenny. Thank you for being here. If you notice this is a little bit different, it's because I am out of the office. I'm in the field, and so we are doing a little bit of a different intro today. It'll be quick and sweet, and we'll keep things moving. If you're new here, thank you for coming. If you've been around for a while, thank you for listening. If you guys can, take a moment, rate our podcast, whether it's on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, so that it helps us get content to more people. Today, we are going to talk to Travis once again about high-end gear. Do we need it? What does it do for you? What makes it better? All the things that you get out of premium gear. We hope that this podcast will inform you on what you need, and so that you can get ready to jump in the field soon. Hopefully you get an opportunity to go hunting, do what you want to do this fall. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks. Well, hello, welcome back to the Inside Spread podcast. We're excited to have you back. Today we're going to be talking about some high-end clothing brands that are across the nation that provide several different types of camos and warmth abilities and versatilities and all kinds of things. So we're going to get in really deep with that. And so today we have Travis back on again. So welcome back, Travis.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
So we just want to let you know that the Inside Spread is excited to have all these new fans here. If you could take a moment and go on to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and just like our podcast, follow our podcast, subscribe, all the things. We'd really appreciate it. And take just a little 30 seconds of your time and review our podcast. We'd really appreciate it. And it just helps us continue to get our message out to more people. So thank you. And we'll just get started here right away with Travis. And we just want to talk a little bit about the high-end clothing brands, but to get started, who are the major players in the high-end clothing industry?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's a lot of them right now. I think the two that a lot of people think of right off the bat are Kuiu and Sitka. They just they became the thing like almost overnight. It happened so fast I didn't even notice it. But then we've got like First Lite and Forloh, Stone Glacier, several others I was looking at, like Orvis, um, brands like that. There's just a ton of them now. Oh, I'm a big fan of Duck Camp. They came out a while back. They're kind of more of a lifestyle brand, but they do have some nice camo options in there. But yeah, there's just all these companies that are just catering to this super high quality, very expensive stuff, which I think that's what everybody notices first is they notice that price tag.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of blew my mind the first time I saw a $300 pair of hunting pants. But it's almost become the standard now.
Yeah. It's almost like I've talked to some people about this, but like that for a while, like hunting camo kind of was like in the background, and now they're like catching up to like skiing and hiking brands, like as far as quality and keeping you warm and all those types of options.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the tech that they're using, for stuff like that, for the high end hiking stuff, it's making its way into these brands, which makes perfect sense. You want something that's windproof, water resistant, all those great qualities. It just makes sense to navigate all that stuff into this type of clothing.
Yeah. It, I've noticed with the bulk as well. Like when I was hunting as a teenager, like I'm wearing like this huge orange jacket and these huge orange pants, and they're not even keeping me warm. They're just, winter style. And now it's like I can wear a regular winter jacket and feel comfortable and not, I think I hunted last year in a -9 degree temperature one day, and I was cold. Of course, you're not going to be warm in that, but it wasn't to the point of where like I can't be out here anymore.
Oh yeah, for sure. I started hunting 1999. So, I had some pretty cheap brands and I would freeze every winter as a kid out there, just it, the stuff I had, it was not up to snuff like we have now. It was, it wasn't super cheap stuff, but it wasn't the highest end either. And it didn't have the warmth properties. It didn't have the insulation. And, these days, it's very, very rare for me to get cold anymore. And I think a lot of it is just the jump in quality that we've seen.
Mhm. So, what do you see as the biggest difference between like a $300 jacket that maybe you get at First Lite or Kuiu versus your $80 jacket that you might find at Walmart?
Sure, I think a lot of it is just the quality of the materials themselves. If you're spending $300, you're probably going to get better insulation. You're going to get like a merino wool, or you're going to get some like special like thinsulate uh, insulation in there, and it does a much better job of you know, trapping your body heat and keeping you warm. It's gonna shed water a lot better. And just the overall stitching of some of this high-end stuff that I have is just a lot better. There's not a lot of loose threads. It can take a lot more abuse. Walk through thorns and it doesn't do anything to it, whereas it might tear some of the cheaper stuff I've had in the past. Um, and yeah, just better components I've noticed.
Mhm.
Bigger zippers, which are easier to grip in the cold.
Mhm.
It's really down to the little nitty-gritty details. I think there's some people who look at this stuff and they're like, "That's not worth $300." But when you break it down and then you take it into the field, it's like there's kind of a reason behind that price, and a lot of it is just in the construction itself and just
Yeah,
how effective it is.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've seen that difference as well. You're thinking, you know, having a jacket that is supposed to be windproof, but it kind of is very leaky, and you feel it underneath the corners of the jacket and up your arms and in your neck. And then these days you can kind of, uh, with a nicer jacket, they're designed to keep that airflow from getting out and or getting in. So then it helps you, maintain that warmth. So I think I've seen it, plenty that it helps a lot, and it made a huge difference from when I was, elk hunting in the West or deer hunting in the Midwest. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And a lot of these materials, they'll also dry faster or they'll stay drier longer. It's just the way it wicks away the moisture. Or, just uh I've become a big fan of like merino wool socks.
Mhm.
Like they're expensive. You're gonna pay like $20 a pair, but man, does it make a huge difference. Your feet don't sweat, even if you've got like a long walk out to the stand,
Mhm.
and my toes just don't get cold anymore and stuff like that.
That's a good point. Socks are very important, and all the base layers, the merino base layers that they have these days, First Lite, Kuiu, that they're unmatched. It seems like, and you know, compared to what we kind of grew up with. So that brings me to another question about more specifically about camo patterns. Obviously there's been Mossy Oak has been around forever, Realtree's been around forever, and some of these other brands are kind of new and making new patterns that are different. What is the difference between maybe all these high end brands and maybe the stick and leaf patterns of Mossy Oak and Realtree?
Yeah, I think I've kind of noticed over the past like 20 years that there's been kind of a shift away from the more dense sticks and leaves type patterns, your realtree hardwoods, your mossy oaks. Um, they were kind of they were really dense, and I feel like you had to be in the right spot for those to be super effective on whitetails and turkeys or whatever you're pursuing. I think it has a tendency to blob a little bit, some of these patterns. I've killed some big deer wearing these patterns, but I've noticed since I started wearing like Sitka, Kuiu, Forloh, First Lite, like their patterns are a lot more open. They're not as dense, and deer just seem to have a harder time with these patterns. I didn't used to win like a standoff, and that doe comes in and you don't see her, she's walking really light and she startles you and she stands there and stamps her foot. I never won those standoffs in the past. I'm not that stealthy. But since I started wearing some of these high end patterns, I've won several of those stare downs, and it just kind of blows my mind. It's like she couldn't she couldn't make me out because it there's just something about it that breaks out up the outline a little bit better, I think, than those traditional patterns. Um, they just seem more versatile, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like across different, things. Um, I've killed a few deer with QU. I've killed a deer with a Forloh now. Um, and yeah, it's a night and day difference, really. I've noticed, which is crazy. I wouldn't have thought that it made such a big deal. I mean, you're always gonna have like old timers here, like my grandfather would kill him, in a plaid shirt and jeans,
Hmm.
which yeah, you can do that too. Yeah, I think it really does make a difference. It just makes it that much harder for them to pick up that little bit of motion on you. Like I said, for a guy like me who's not super stealthy, it's why I don't really bow hunt much anymore, is because I can't make those movements. But man, it's been a game changer for me, really.
Yeah, I think last year I had a couple of does come up on me at the same time, just coming in to feed, and it took them a long time. Like I never really got a good clear shot at them, so I kind of just hanging out there waiting for them to get into the right spot. But it took them a long, long time to figure out where I was. They after a little bit they kind of had an idea just because it was probably an hour plus they're just sitting there, and so eventually they kind of started to figure out where I was. But it took them a long, long time, and I was just they were just sitting right out in front of me, and I had to sit as still as possible, but they just weren't in a shooting position with my bow. And so I just was kind of hanging out, waiting for them just to kind of clear the area. And it took them a good hour plus before they were like, there's something in that tree over there. And I think that is a big difference. I'm, wearing, even back in the day when I was rifle hunting, you're wearing that, the orange camo, the orange and black camo. You don't look like a big, huge white and black blob in a tree that doesn't, what out there in the animal kingdom looks like that.
Yeah,
That looks suspicious, and then they're out of
yeah.
there.
I
So,
mean, you got to keep in mind they're not seeing the world like we are. It's been a while since I've read up on how deer see the world or how turkeys see the world, but they're seeing it drastically different than we are, and so some of these patterns, they look very simple, but there's just something about it that it may get their eyes better than it gets ours. So
yeah,
seems like a lot of these companies have kind of embraced that.
yeah. I think they are working on it from a scientific perspective too. They're looking at it and thinking about what deer are seeing in the woods and going from that perspective instead of what is appealing to our eyes and on the counter, or on the shelf in the store and being like, hey, that looks like a good camo for this area. Instead, they're making it the opposite direction. They're putting these and testing them on deer to see what they see. And I think that's probably a bit what's making a big difference for sure.
Sure.
So just transition a little bit. When, obviously, if you are looking at these brands, when do you think it's worth making that investment into the premium gear, just kind of instead of, maybe just dealing with what you got?
That depends on a bunch of different factors. There's kind of an old saying out there, like, where like a worker can buy like a bunch of $20 pairs of boots and keep buying a new pair every 6 months, or you can buy like a $200 pair
Hmm.
and keep it for 10 years. I've heard that used before in the past, and I think it kind of applies here. I mean, if you're looking for something longer term where you don't want to invest in camo again for a very long time, I think that's when you start to look at, maybe dropping a lot of money on a pair of pants and a jacket that's just going to last you. Um,
Hmm.
you know, the other part of it is if you're going to be very serious about hunting and if you're going to be hunting in a bunch of different environments, if you're going to be going to different states and you want something that's going to be a little bit more versatile, again, going back to the camo, you want something that works in the mountains and that's going to work in the Midwest. I think that's when you start looking at some of these higher end brands because I think some of the other camo brands like Mossy Oak and Realtree, I'm not sure they're as versatile in that way. They're very effective. They're effective camo. I mean, you can kill deer and turkeys with that stuff. But I think again, you have to be in the right scenario for that. And it just feels like a lot of these higher end brands are a little bit more versatile. Um,
Yeah,
I
you
think the other
go
big
ahead.
thing is just, if you're tired of being cold, if you've been buying, lower end brands and they haven't been keeping you warm, it's maybe time to look at some better insulation, some lighter materials. Uh, there's a whole host of reasons to look into it. But I see it as mainly a longer term investment because everything I have has done an excellent up. I'm not strictly a fan of one thing over another. Um, During turkey season this year, I wore Cut Camp, I wore Kuiu, I wore Sitka, and I wore Forloh. So I wear them all.
Yeah, yeah. I think my first kind of step into the premium brand area was getting some base layers from First Lite. The camo at the start, I was like, I don't know, it's kind of expensive to buy those outer layers. I'm gonna look elsewhere for that for now. But the base layers were like key. Like I wore those the first time, and I was like, now these are what long johns are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be keeping you warm. And the long johns we wore as kids, they didn't do nothing. They
Yeah.
were compared, at least comparatively to these merino based materials. So I I'm glad that I kind of found that.
Yeah, and that's another avenue you can explore if you're not ready to drop, $300 on a jacket and pants. You can invest in some high quality base layers that are going to allow you to sit longer, without getting as cold, and you can use, your cheaper stuff until you want to save up for something else. The base layers are generally a lot cheaper than buying the full on jacket and pants. So
Yeah,
that's something you could consider if you're considering, making that jump.
for sure. Yeah, that's like I said, that's exactly what I did. I was like, price tag on that First Light jacket. No, thank you. But that long sleeve shirt and that pair of pants, that under base layer pants, I was like, that seems affordable, and it has certainly made a huge difference of how long I can sit in the woods and how comfortable I am each day. So, another question, kind of related to the industry, like why is it seeming like the premium pricing continues to evolve and essentially just get more expensive as we go along? What do you think is happening there?
Unfortunately, I think that that's kind of a symptom of hunting in general. Um, it's kind of moving to almost a pay to play kind of thing. Um, one of my big concerns has always been access. That's one of the things that they talk about. A lot of people aren't getting into hunting because they simply can't afford to lease or they can't afford to buy a piece of property. Um, so you've got a lot of the major hunters, the ones who are spending money, they want high-end gear, and so a lot of these brands, hey, they're responding in turn to that.
Hmm.
They want to cater to these hunters who have a lot of extra income, they want the absolute best and they won't settle for anything else. So I feel like that's a big push on it. A lot of the hunting influencers, a lot of the big name hunting brands, they're all pushing this stuff because that's what they use and it's what they need really
Hmm.
because they're in the woods as much as they are. Um,
Yeah.
so I think a lot of that is a big part of it is it's just this is the way the wind is blowing in the hunting industry, unfortunately. So you're seeing a little bit less in the budget side of things, just because there's the demand. And
Yeah.
as long as there's the demand, this is probably going to be the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, kind of to flip the gear, and you started to mention it there. What are some of the more budget friendly brands that you feel like have performed well?
Yeah, so I've become a pretty big fan of Academy Sports Magellan brand the past few years. I did a press event down in Texas with them, and I got to wear a bunch of those brands. I have a bunch of lightweight shirts and uh, hats and pants and stuff like that, and it's surprisingly well made. It's just really well stitched. I have some pants that are very lightweight, very airy if you're hunting in like a hot environment. Like we did a dove hunt in it. It's great for like duck hunting, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, it's not at the same level as some of this other stuff out there, but that's probably the biggest brand that I like is the Academy Sports Magellan brand. It's really surprising. Give a lot of credit to Academy Sports for making stuff like that so accessible. The only
Yeah.
downside to their brand is that it's catered to more of a warm weather client.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't have as many cold weather options as some other brands. Um, another really good one. I bought some redhead gear from like Cabela's in recent
Hmm.
years, and that's usually fairly affordable or it's mid-tier priced.
Hmm.
That's pretty decent stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was my elk hunt, it was kind of the first time I was like, I need to have a different kind of camo than my normal standby at home. So I actually had bought some King's camo for my outer layers then, and at that time they were, just trying to kind of push into the premium brands as far as, and they're probably still, at least as far as pricing, they're pretty mid tier, but they, I think, have some quality stuff that is going to be more budget friendly, uh, which is nice. And then I actually bought my son some stuff from them recently on their clearance rack just to because he's a growing boy. He didn't want to spend a ton of money on it, but then I needed something warm because we're going to be hunting the Midwest again, and it's cold comparatively to some of the stuff at we've looked at some stuff at Academy Sports, and it's not it's not ready for the cold weather stuff. So we got some Kings there as well, and I think it's going to be work really well for him. And so there's some budget friendly stuff out there that's still quality, but you just have to kind of maybe search it out a little bit more. So, a couple of what if or slash questions. If you could only get, you have like one option. It's one option, one high end piece of hunting clothing. Hunting clothing. What would it be and why?
Yeah, so I've got an outfit from First Lite, um, which actually I think the particular jacket and pants have been discontinued since then. But I wore that on a hunt. I hunted with some of the guys from Meat Eater. I hunted with Ryan Callahan in Wisconsin. Uh, and that is probably the nicest jacket and pants that I own. It is just so toasty warm and just so comfortable. Really, really impressed by what they've done. And I've worn that quite a bit the last few years. That's been one of my favorites. Um, but I do really like what Kuiu has been doing too. They make some really nice options, some really warm jackets and some really comfortable pants. I've got a pair of pants from them that it's got the reinforced front
Hmm.
uh, on the legs, so you can walk through like thorns and stickers, which I have a lot of them in the hunting area, a ton of them, and
Hmm.
it just I don't get stuck when I'm walking through there with that stuff. It just kind of bounces off it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's really hard for me to pick one. Like I said, I wear pretty much every brand that I have. I'll cycle between them depending on the situation. Last year I shot my buck while wearing Forloh because it was raining, so I was wearing Forloh rain gear that night. So yeah,
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's personal preference. Obviously, is the biggest one. I mean, there's some people that are like hardcore, like you gotta have Q. And it's like, actually, we can mix and match here. Like think about, and I've talked to a lot of people on Facebook about it. It's like you can mix and match some of these benefits and find some of the best kits. It's almost like, thinking about like those, I think like Sports Illustrated used to, and back in the day used to like produce a poster every year about who is the greatest quarterback arm and who has the greatest head and who has the greatest legs. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like what I was thinking about, like with hunting gear. Like, sure, you're going to want to match camo on the outer layer, but you can definitely, you know, change some things up as you go and for different situations, places, and conditions as well to kind of make yourself the best kit you possibly can. And if you're smart about it, there's plenty of sales and discounts and clearances out there that can help you get what you want, what you're looking for.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of tribalism out there in terms of camo, and I know people who are like that. They're like, "Oh no, I only wear this or I only wear that." And I'm just I'm at the age where I'm kind of over that, and it's just like I'm gonna wear what works for the scenario. And I have done that. I have mixed and matched. I think I wore First Lite and Kuiu. I was because I've got a pair of really nice Kuiu boots that I love, and I think I wore those all season, regardless of what I was wearing. In terms of camo, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah. It would be interesting to also, I don't think anybody would test this because, why would you test several different brands? But it'd be interesting to see a test if there was, somebody was wearing a QU pants and a First Light jacket, if there's a major difference between what a deer sees and not. That would be kind of an interesting thing. I'm sure that doesn't happen very much because these people who are designing this stuff is only involved in one brand, but I think it would be kind of cool if they thought about that. Like maybe there's a
Yeah,
way to test it out with the guy wearing one brand on top and one brand on the bottom and see what happens.
yeah, for sure.
Uh, so, kind of to wrap it up, uh, if you were able to give advice to a brand new hunter who's never bought camo before and is kind of overwhelmed by all the options, what do you think that they should do?
I think buy what you can afford. Um, but just kind of do your research. Again, I would look at stuff like merino wool and like we talked about earlier, consider investing in the base layers first and then worrying about the external layers a little bit later. You can kill deer wearing just about anything. You just have to be stealthy enough. Um, it's just these higher end brands give you a little bit more of an advantage. And it's something where you might build up your kit over time, all the stuff that I own, I didn't get it overnight. This was slowly accumulation of things over the past few years writing for, Field and Stream and Outdoor Life. I'd review these brands and now I have just like a huge stockpile of stuff that,
Mm-hmm.
most people don't have. It is. It's kind of a long-term investment thing, do your research on what, you know, type of insulation is going to work best for you in the environment that you're hunting. You may not need something that's super heavy that's going to retain a lot of heat if you're in like South Texas and you're going to be hunting doves and ducks. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
want something lightweight that wicks away moisture. Uh, it really depends on the situation, but you know, that would be the big thing. Just research the materials that are in each garment and what they do. We could sit here and go over it all day long about the different materials out there and what each one is good for, like polyester versus fleece, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really kind of on the hunter to do some research to figure out, okay, this is going to work best for this scenario. This is going to work best for this. I mean, there's basically a garment for every single situation you can think of in hunting.
Yeah,
Um, and it's hard to find a one size fits all kind of thing.
for sure. I think every brand out there these days has like their own proprietary, labels and types of garments and things like that, and they label them all different. Even though this one might be merino wool and this one might be merino wool, they label them differently and talk about them differently. And so it's like you just have to take your time and go through it so you can make a good quality decision. Like I said, over time is probably the best way to approach it because if you're just going to go onto firstlite.com or Kuiu.com today and get your stuff, you're going to spend a pretty penny just doing that. But you could, wait till they have a sale, or jump on one of their email lists where they tell you when they have a 30 or 40% off sale or clearance or whatever, and that could help you, kind of stockpile that camo that you're looking for. So
Yeah, for sure. And it's a good idea to go to the store and try on different things and just to see what you like, see
Mhm.
what's comfortable. Is this jacket too heavy? Is it too light? One big thing I always tell people is like when you're trying on like a pair of hunting clothing, like kind of swish the fabric and see if it makes, a loud noise. Because
Yeah,
there's some hunting material out there that's really, really noisy and you don't want that. So look out for stuff like that. Um, it really is a trial and error process, and I didn't get it right, the first time I was picking camo. I don't think anybody does.
yeah,
You're probably on the right track if you have the money to invest in one of these high-end things right off the bat. But yeah, you do need to think situationally about it.
for sure. All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our conversation on camo today. Uh, what else do you got coming up next?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna work on some maybe some tactic articles, some of the rifle tactic articles we've been discussing on Slack. Maybe we'll do some stuff along those lines. Not sure how much hunting I'm gonna get to do this year. As I told you before the show, my freezer is just bursting with venison right now. So I'm not super concerned about getting a deer this year, which is a good problem to have.
Mhm.
But that gives me a little bit more time maybe to write and uh, spread some knowledge to help other hunters have the same problem.
Yeah, for sure. I will be hunting the next couple weeks here with me and my son, so we're excited for that to get out. He's just turned 12, so for a lot of places around the country, it's kind of the first big hunt that he's going to be able to do, and so we're excited about that. And hopefully, we will get some venison for our freezer because we have none right now. We want to fill that guy up a little bit, and I actually have an article hopefully coming out here in the next day or two talking about hunting snacks because I think that's an important thing to have in your bag. What are you eating for lunch? What are you snacking on? How can you keep it quiet? How can you, get what you need, the calories and, the taste and all the things that go along with that. So keep your eye
Oh,
out for
it's a
that
very,
stuff.
very important thing, especially if you're going to be sitting all day long.
Yeah.
That's the thing that always boggles my mind is like how tired I am after sitting all day long. Even if I've got snacks and stuff, it's like, why am I so tired? I just sat in
Yeah.
a tree for 12 hours.
Yep. So we have some suggestions on some recipes and some proteins and the things you bring. For me personally, I love frozen sandwiches and frozen Snicker bars. People out there seem to hate those things sometimes, and it's like nostalgic for me to be in the woods and have a frozen sandwich and some frozen Snicker bars.
All
All
right.
right. That is it for the show today. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time. Thanks for joining the Inside Spread podcast today. Bye, everyone.
Echoes of the woods where the heartbeats meet. Freedom runs wild under nature's dome. Down by the pine, it feels like home. Crisp wind whispers through the autumn gold. Stories of the land, both new and old. Tracks in the dirt, the trail calls my name. Out here in the wild, it's all just the same. Down by the pine.